Welcome to Solving Quadratic Equations Part 2, the discriminant. In Part 1 we talked about how to use the formula you see in front of you. This is the quadratic formula. How to use it to get the values that x need to be to make the quadratic equation you are working with equal to 0. Now we talked about the discriminant and its importance in the first part a little bit, but we're going to dive into it a little bit more because this little part right here, this part underneath the radical, this is what we're going to be focusing on. This is the discriminant. And the discriminant tells us whether or not we're going to have two solutions, one solution, or no real solutions. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to see just how it works. So let's get to it. So in the first video, you might have seen something similar to this, and we talked about how we can have two solutions from our quadratic equation. This is when it touches the x-axis, goes below it for some time, and then comes back up through the x-axis, so we have two solutions right there. We could also have just one solution, so we have our vertex on the x-axis, so it just touches the x-axis, never goes below it, and then goes back up. But then we also have no solutions or no real solutions here, where try as we may, this is not coming in contact with the x-axis. It doesn't get low enough. So, as I said, we have our quadratic formula, the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and that is equal to x. Those are the x values we're looking for. And this part underneath the radical, the discriminant, as I named it earlier, the discriminant tells us which one of these graphs we're dealing with. And we don't even need to worry about the square root. It's literally just this part, b squared minus 4ac. This is the discriminant. And it's what we are going to be focusing on right now. Because depending on what that discriminant turns out to be, what type of number we get when we work out that part, we're going to know for certain, oh, I've got two solutions, I have one solution, or I have no solutions. So let's talk about what number this has to give us to have each one of those outcomes. So let's take a look. So the first case we have here is b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. All that's saying is you put your numbers into the discriminant and you get a positive number. Okay, it has to be a positive number, something like 5 or 12. It could be a decimal as well. It doesn't have to be a whole number. As long as it is greater than 0 or positive, you are going to have two solutions. And we'll see an example of that in a little bit. But as long as the discriminant is positive, we get two real solutions. Now, if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, okay, that means it is 0. It's not a decimal. It's not 0.0025, something that's close to 0. It is exactly 0. If it's exactly 0, we have one solution. So this is that case where the vertex is on the x-axis. So if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, we have one solution. So if we're greater than 0, positive number, two solutions. Equal to 0, one solution. You can probably guess what the next one is going to be. If we have b squared minus 4ac and it is less than 0, we have a negative number. Okay, if we have a negative number, this means there are no real solutions. And the reason for that is if b squared minus 4ac is a negative, we're going to be trying to take the square root of a negative number. Okay, and negative numbers, their square roots are not real numbers. You'll learn about them more in Algebra 2. It opens up a whole new branch of mathematics. but we're not going to worry about those in Algebra 1. So let us do a quick little recap and get to our examples. If b squared minus 4ac is positive, okay, as long as it's greater than 0 of any type, you have two solutions, two real solutions. If it's equal to 0, you have one real solution. And if it is less than 0, if it is a negative number, we have no real solutions. So let's take a look at our two examples and see what we get. And all we're trying to say is, does it have two solutions, one solution, or no real solutions? So here we go. Alright, so here is example 1 and example 2. We'll do them side by side. We'll do example 1 first. Remember, we're trying to find that discriminant, so we want to know the b squared minus 4ac part of the quadratic formula. I still need to know my a's, my b's, and my c's. So according to this example, a is 3, b is 10, and c is 2. Now we're not going to do the full formula. You do not have to do that this time. We're just focusing on the discriminant. If it said tell how many solutions there are and then solve, then we've got to do the full thing. But we're not doing that right now. So b squared, that is 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 2. There's our discriminant filled out. And now we can work it out. 10 squared is 100. 4 times 3 is 12. Times 2 is 24. So I have 100 minus 24, which is 76. Well, is 76 a positive number, a negative number, or 0? It's a positive number. So since this is a positive number, we have two real solutions. And there's our answer. We're done. Not too bad. Just plugging it into the discriminant part of the quadratic formula, evaluating it, getting our number, and then examining the number to be positive, negative, or 0. Alright, let's take a look at the next one. We're still going to use b squared minus 4ac. We're going to use that for all of these types of problems when we're trying to see how many solutions there are. A is 9, B is negative 6, C is 1. So b squared, you're going to have parentheses, negative 6 squared, and it's very important that if you're typing that into your calculator, you put the parentheses in and the square on the outside. If you put it on the inside, you're going to get the wrong number. It's going to turn out to be negative, and it's going to change everything else. So make sure you put it into your calculator just like you saw me write it just now. Parenthesis, the number, end parentheses, then the square. Okay, so negative 6 squared minus 4 times 9 times 1. Negative 6 squared, written like that, gives me a positive 36. 4 times 9 times 1 is 36 as well, so I have 36 minus 36, which is 0. Well, it's not positive, it's not negative, it's 0. So that means we have one real solution. And there's our answer. Alright, hopefully you found this video not too difficult and it makes sense. Good luck with solving for the number of solutions with the discriminant.